All right. Welcome to another edition of Vegas Badboyz of podcasting. I'm DJ Impact. I got the Badboyz here with me. And thanks for hanging out with us. We are doing 3 counts. We got 3 good topics for you today. And, we'll see where everybody stands, and you can let us know where you stand as well. If you're watching us live, feel free to put in your comments. And I know some people may ask, well, we always hear that to put the comments in live. Where do we do that? Well, you have to be on Facebook Live. And if you just go to Vegas Badboyz, just make sure that you follow us and you get the notifications. They come Sunday around 8 p.m.-ish and then 9:30-ish for the second show. And if you just be on Facebook Live, that's where we get a lot of the comments. So feel free to join us at that time, and you can throw your comments in, all right? So let's start with the 3 count. The first one is from dailyddt.com, and it is titled that Braun Strowman should head to New Japan Pro Wrestling. Just to read a little bit of the article, it says, it has been covered in numerous sources that he will be performing in September at QPW Super Slam 3 in Qatar on February 26, 2022. And although that event is still a ways off, his being signed for that event speaks volumes. Yet, even though it's far off as far as events go, he's been training and he looks ring ready, to say the least. The fact that he's doing this show leads many to believe that he will sign rather with AEW, as it's possible to perform in other promotions while signed there, as so many AEW stars do. And conversely, WWE frowns upon it, and their schedules doesn't permit it anyway. So where he ends up, of course, still up in the air, no matter how crazy the aforementioned rumors are and what they allude to. But perhaps, though, he should consider going to New Japan Pro Wrestling. He has been a WWE guy since the beginning of his career, and a turn in New Japan Pro would add to his allure and his experience. It would be a great move for him looking forward. And then it just goes on a little bit talking about how Doc Gallows, who's also started their career with New Japan. I guess they were just trying to compare how both of those are big guys, strong men, and that their ring styles are very similar. And so they just kind of say how that works well for Doc and how that can work very well for Strowman as well. All right. Let me go over, just because Sin City, when it comes to New Japan, you definitely know a lot more than a few of us here. But what's your thoughts on this? What do you see as far as Braun Strowman? Do you think that his next move should be trying to go over to New Japan?
I think that his next move should be trying to go to Japan in any Fed that he can get, whether it's New Japan or even All Japan. All Japan has a different kind of a in-ring style. Okay. Definitely they value, how should we say this? Hosses. So whereas New Japan, they tend to gravitate more toward the more average sized competitors. The guys in All Japan are just absolute tanks and monsters. And it's almost like watching, Godzilla versus, Kong and that kind of shit, depending on when they have two major names, button heads, in All Japan, they definitely don't get nearly as much press as what they deserve. But I think for that reason, mainly is why he won't go there, is he's going to have an area where he's going to get some recognition, even back here in the States. All Japan really has not garnered too much of a fan base here in the US for one reason or another. So New Japan definitely would work. And keep in mind, here's a guy that's 6'8", and he's shredded now. Like, dude has taken this time since he's been away from WWE to focus on just cutting weight and also just gaining muscle. So dude has put in the work, to say the very least. Okay. And I think that he would definitely prosper in a Japanese Fed, especially if you want to go down the route of New Japan. Yeah, he'll definitely be the biggest guy there without question.
Sure.
And he will truly be a monster among men.
Let me ask you, Simon Street. I mean, again, this is a WWE guy. He's definitely got the name and the familiarity with most people are going to know who he is. Do you see New Japan being something he should consider, or not really consider that? Maybe just try to go right into maybe an AEW with the opportunity that if he chooses to go New Japan, he more than likely will, because AEW does allow it. What's your take on that?
Well, I think, along the same lines of what Sin City Steve was saying, definitely go to Japan. That's actually a formula that has proven very well to a lot of people before, to where you go to New Japan, build up your name internationally, and then kind of go from there. And the one thing I feel like he really has going for him is, for the longest time, we've only seen Braun Strowman built one way. This is his opportunity to really just, as Steve says, he looks shredded. He definitely has lost some weight, more cut. Hopefully he'll change up a couple of things with his promos, maybe not sound so monstrous, I guess. I don't know. It's a perfect opportunity, in other words.
Yeah.
And if he does it just right with the same formula that has been great for a lot of people, I think by the time, in 5 years' time, maybe 3 years' time, he comes back, WWE is going to be looking at the chops to get him back. AEW, they're going to still be here. They're going to be, his stock is going to go that much higher.
Yeah. Well, Well, let's jump over to you, Matt. What would be your take on this particular topic? Braun Strowman, I mean, WWE guy, could be very successful in New Japan. One thing for sure, it looks like that New Japan is definitely a company, I guess, that gets a lot of respect within the wrestling community, where I guess if you can go there and do well and become successful, that you more than likely can, in all the other promotions, do very well. You think this would be a good look for Braun Strowman to consider?
I honestly, I don't really care for Braun Strowman in general.
Mm-hmm.
I think the problem is that comparing him to Gallows is a very bad comparison. And that is, when Gallows was in the WWE, he was not a dominant force that was pushed as a champion. And then when they realized that there's no one to wrestle him,
mm-hmm.
That's the problem with Braun. They realized, what do we do with this guy? So
right.
I don't care if he goes to AEW or to Japan or to Poughkeepsie. Sean had a good point. If he's not careful, he'll end up like Ryback. And that's not a bad comparison, because I think that Ryback essentially had kind of the same thing. You put him in a situation where he was this dominant type character, and he was not nearly as big as Braun. And Braun's size is kind of a detriment. And you can tell by the pictures that one of the things that he's trying to do is size down, which is now a catch-22. Because if you're going from such a big guy to now a cut guy, now the question is, well, is he big enough to be the same presence he was once?
Right.
So he's just in a really, from day one, he's always been in a bad situation, because he's not Andre the Giant. And to some extent, and to more of a comparison, he wasn't even the Big Show, man, because Braun didn't have the same personality that Show did.
Right.
So
yeah.
When you only have those kind of, few guys, let's face it, Braun was a bigger guy than Undertaker, and Undertaker is a big guy. Quite frankly, Undertaker, Kane, those guys had something. They had something. Braun has something missing, man. And I don't know what it is, but
yeah,
it's tough. And like Steve said, if he goes to New Japan, he's wrestling smaller guys. If he goes and he wrestles the big hosses, I fret to think that there might be injury involved at that point too, because of the fact that I don't know if Braun is really that good of a worker. So yeah, I don't know. It's just awkward, man. I don't. Is anyone really crying? Is anyone going, man, I want Braun Strowman back on wrestling? And I think that's one of the telltale factors. I don't think there's a lot of people out there just screaming for Braun right now. Whereas Bray, people, want to see Bray.
Yeah. Chris just said Luke Gallows didn't become Gallows until he went to New Japan. Before then, he was a corn-fed colossus named Festus that was a mute until a bell rang.
No. See, now you're already losing the story here. Remember, Luke was also CM Punk's little boy toy. So, and that's where he started to become kind of different than the Festus thing.
Yeah, straight edge society, right? He was part of him. Yep.
So, and then once he got released after that, that's when he went to New Japan. The thing with Braun is, regardless of where he goes, he is Braun Strowman. Gallows didn't have that attached to him.
Yeah.
And so Gallows could create another incarnation, and you could realistically put him in a tag team with a buddy of his and in a club like that and whatnot. Whereas we saw it with him in the Wyatt family.
Yeah.
It lasted for only as long as it could last before it's like, well, we got to do something else with him. We give him the push, and he does all this extreme stuff, like, dismembering cars and pushing over ambulances and whatever the hell else they had him do. So you made him that much of a monster, and if he goes in the ring and loses to Rey Mysterio, you kind of fuck yourself. So.
But what really killed it for Braun Strowman toward the end, at least for me, is that whole fucking bullshit program he was for, like, I've been bullied my whole life. People have been talking. That stupid shit he did with Shane. That was the dumbest fucking shit ever. Because they did what they did with the Big Show. They made him look like a fucking little dude. It was just
the train.
We need to stop making big men be big teddy bears. That shit is fucking old.
Yeah, but you just hit on the reason that it doesn't work for guys, and that is because if you don't make them another dimension to what you are having them as, you have nowhere to go with them.
Yeah, I see your point.
You get stuck into that. If you saw Braun Strowman doing the same thing for 8 years, it's, for instance, how did people react to Roman Reigns when he was getting pushed down their throats, right? You were able to do something different with him when you brought him back as his heel. Braun is bigger than Roman Reigns. So, it's hard to come up with that balance of, okay, if we push this guy too much, fans are going to get sick of him. Then we're going to have to do something to make him stand apart. And that's almost impossible to do because, like you just said, well, if he's a big guy now, how come all of a sudden he's a teddy bear and he doesn't want to, he was picked on when he was a kid, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's fucking hard to write for those guys, especially if you've never been a giant. And that's, I think, one of the biggest factors. No one on that staff knows what it's like to be in that man shows.
Let me ask you a question real quick, and I'll leave it there. Did anybody else feel that the way that they did, or the way Andre the Giant was presented, made sense, and every other big man after that is just fucking big fucking question mark? Is it just me?
Well, what do you mean? Like in terms of the way they used Andre?
Yeah, the way they used Andre. I don't know. I just felt like when I look at Andre and I look at him as this giant, I could see him. I mean, he wasn't always 100% destructive. He wasn't always 100% serious. You know, he had a soft side to him, or joking side. But for me, maybe because I was a kid and I was watching, I felt like it made sense. I felt like what they've done with the Big Show, they damn near neutered that man by the time he went over to WWE. You know, same thing with Braun Strowman. They've done it probably with other big guys, and they'll probably continue to. I'm just wondering, like, I feel like they did it right with Andre.
Okay, they had no choice, because they only actually had Andre in a national eye, the WWE, the WWF, Vince McMahon-led eye, from essentially 84 until, 89. It was about 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Hey, by the way, Jay just said,
seemed like longer.
Shout out to Jade. She said, who? We're aging ourselves. Oh my God.
Yeah, you're right.
She's probably joking. She's joking.
Let's get back on track here and talk about stuff that Jade wants to hear about. So Edge is absolutely
Oh, you hit the trigger word. Oh my God. Oh boy. Here we go.
No, Michaels, you brought up an amazing point. Like, I didn't even think about that. But realistically, Andre was only in WWF for like in a national capacity for 5 years.
That's crazy. It seemed like it was so much longer.
Wow.
And at that point too, what's even then you look at the fact that he wasn't nearly as capable either athletically at that point. So you had a situation, because there was no internet, no national company, just all the, territories and stuff, where Vince's dad booked him out to all these different companies, and he was an attraction and was beloved because of that. When you came in, you got to see something you've never seen in your life. Now you can Google, 9-foot giant and probably get 15 results. And please, people, do not Google that, because you're going to get the weirdest kind of result that you don't want to really see.
All right, man. Good stuff. And by the way, yes, you have caused Jay to go off. Okay. Let's go to our second count from BleacherReport.com. Who will be WWE's next megastar after Roman Reigns? So let's read a little bit of what it says. It says that WWE is a business that goes beyond professional wrestling. It is sports entertainment built on the idea that its superstars can be stars who can stand above the rest of the brand. However, few make that leap. The Rock, Stone Cold, Steve Austin, Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, John Cena, and Bret Hart are among those who have managed to find success that transcends their counterparts, and they become megastars. And the latest wrestler to break through that ceiling is Roman Reigns. And while he has not quite hit the true mainstream, he is the biggest actor in wrestling, able to stand next to John Cena at the peak of the champ's mainstream Hollywood rise. And it is likely the WWE Universal Champion will stand at that peak for a while longer. But eventually everything will shift again. A new star will step up, especially if Reigns can pull off a move to Hollywood like Cena or his cousin, The Rock. And then while Reigns' success seems assured, there are plenty of other wrestlers who could be next to make that leap. To do so, they'll need to both shine in WWE and outside of it. Let's take a look at a few who could be the next megastars for WWE. So we're just going to look at this list, and we'll just see what you guys think about who he mentions. The honorable mentions is Damian Priest, Bianca Belair. Those are the two right there. Then for number 2, Sasha Banks. Number 3, Becky Lynch. Number 4, Drew McIntyre. And number 5, Big E. I'm going to start with you, Simon Street. What do you think will be the next big megastar that will come after Roman Reigns that can take it to the next level, WWE?
Now you want me to go from that list, correct?
Well, I mean, you could just choose just one off the list. And if you want to just randomly speak why you would not choose another one, you can. It's up to you. But I just want to know, of the list that I just, what is your particular take over it?
To be completely honest with you, and I say this biased, but honestly, if she does not fuck it up,
Okay.
Sasha Banks, and I'm just being honest, since he seems like I'm proud of you, probably maybe because sometimes she gets close to kind of saying some shit.
Let me ask you, because there hasn't
Am
been.
I lying? Am I lying? No. Am I lying, Sin City? Am I lying? Just saying.
When you go through the names, so The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, John Cena, Bret Hart. One thing you notice from that is what?
Championships. Championships and
no
personality.
No women.
Simon,
No women.
Well, yeah. No women. I mean, but I didn't hear you say what's missing, but go ahead.
And I'm not saying that what you're saying is wrong, but I'm just saying that's going to be a pretty high challenge for Sasha Banks to be the head of that company. But you believe she could do it out of the names that was listed?
I believe that she can, in the capacity of where I see wrestling going, not just to WWE. I feel like it's a big money ticket to really push women's wrestling, and probably in the next 3 to 4 years, you'll see more women's wrestling, if not a whole show. So in that capacity of a whole show, if right now WWE said, hey, in 2022, WWE's women wrestling, whole fucking show, why would you not have Sasha Banks as the front of that?
But that's not the question. Is Sasha Banks John Cena?
I think so. She's already freaking doing movie roles. And again, that's why I said if she doesn't make the mistake that many people make, obviously in cancel culture history that we have now, it's kind of keeping it straight. I mean, she's done The Mandalorian. A lot of people, even outside of fans, hold on, let me finish. Even outside of fans thought that it was a good start from her. She looked comfortable. A lot of other movie people are trying to reach out to her. I don't know what she's personally doing. I'm just saying, out of all the people, I would say.
But the question becomes again, is she John Cena?
Is she John Cena?
The company. See, that's the. I get where you're coming from, but that name made me go,
So what would she be missing that John Cena is, though? Is it the way she's packaged in the company?
Being Charlotte Flair.
Yeah, but Charlotte Flair couldn't act to save her life. As far as movies,
I'm not talking about acting. If we want to talk about people going on to be an actor, Alexa Bliss is probably the first person you pick out, and you go ahead, man, make your millions.
You're right.
But quite honestly, Sasha Banks is not a Charlotte Flair. Charlotte Flair is the closest thing in wrestling that you have to a Hogan, to a Cena, to a Rock. So this is why it's a hard question.
According to Sean, he just said Sasha's career is half over. She hasn't done it yet. She has been great, but face of the company, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Wow.
So everybody, so I'm gonna stick with the women thing. All right. Who would y'all say if a woman could be chosen? Because I think that's the interesting part. Who would it be?
Why don't we do this? Because I want to ask the other guys their thoughts on this, and maybe they may choose a woman. They did name Becky Lynch. They did name Bianca Belair. Sasha named. I mean, it's almost just as many women. I think it's half women, half guys. So there's a possibility one of the guys may choose that. Let me go over to you, Matt Michael. Let's just jump over to you. What from this list? Who do you see being the new face? And maybe he's wrong on all these names. Maybe you already see another person that wasn't listed that could become the face of WWE.
So it's a weird. This as a substance is very kind of the way he picked people is kind of weirdly contradictory, because you pick Damian Priest, and Priest could actually have potential, especially when you're talking about being in Spanish speaking, television, no doubt. But Priest is almost 40 years old, and by no means do you make him the face of your company. There's no way. I mean, it's not going to happen. He's not going to become Hulk Hogan. And to that extent that Sean just said with Sasha. I think the same thing with Becky. I think that Becky had so many years under her belt, and it took a fluke accident for her to all of a sudden emerge with something, right?
That is true.
Bianca has the most potential if you're looking at from a women's side. because of the fact that Bianca is someone they are creating now. So she doesn't have that excessive baggage or whatever, and she has the potential of being as good as someone as a Charlotte Flair in terms of having the wrestling presence because she's an athlete and also transforms naturally into an actress. So that is a good possibility. Big E is kind of in that same boat, man. You can see it, but at the same time, he's been there forever. And he's just not been able to hit that. You don't think of Big E and Ric Flair in the same breath. Now, that also brings up an interesting question. This guy said all these names, Hogan, Cena, Rock, Austin, Ric Flair. And I think Ric Flair is kind of an anomaly because Ric Flair is more known for the character in the wrestling, but Rick never really did anything outside of wrestling. So that becomes another factor, and that's where I think Charlotte might have a problem, right? Because I think Charlotte is poised to be on the wrestling side as one of the greatest ever.
I agree with that one.
And is almost the greatest women's wrestler ever right now. But can she translate into just regular? Could she host a game show? That's why Cena is so different than everything, because Hulk Hogan, a movie guy, The Rock has been different. Cena and The Rock are kind of running in that same circle because they appeal to everything. Mm-hmm. You put them as a host on Regis and Kathy Lee. You could put them as a game show host. You can put them as, in a comedy or in a drama or whatever you want to do with these guys. So you got to look at that. And man, I think that what it comes down to is that person's not there yet. I don't think the person's there yet. Mm-hmm. Bianca's the closest in terms of potential, but can you honestly even look at possibly Cross? Possibly, but I don't know if,
it's yet to be determined, like you said.
Right. It's tough. That's tough. So I don't know, man. I don't know.
Yeah, this is tough. A lot of people are throwing their comments in on the chat, and we see you keep posting them. But let me go over to you, Sin City. What's your take? You've seen this list. You agree with anyone on this name you see being the face? Or is there maybe a name that he forgot to throw on there?
I do. I actually think that Big E is somebody that you could actually get behind and build. Yes, Matt, you did mention he's 35. Now, he has been around for quite a few years. He signed with WWE back in 2009. Thank you to this article for pointing out facts. But nonetheless, I think that realistically speaking, him holding the Money in the Bank briefcase right now could go miles for him and being able to, launch something. Now, out of the people on the main roster, as far as just overall charisma, and every time that he is in front of a camera, that I will watch whatever vignette he's in, whatever kind of promo that he's cutting, that person is Big E. He's extremely captivating. And he's so much untapped potential. And it's crazy that we're saying that about somebody that's 35 years old. But at the end of the day, he's taken extraordinarily good care of himself. And he's actually, trimming down a bit. Not that he had anything to worry about, but he's getting even more shredded. This guy is primed for the prime of his career. Keep in mind, it's been, a thing in the wrestling business for quite some time that the decade where you're going to make the most money has always been in your 40s. So that was something that has been the case for quite some time. You take somebody like an age. Yeah.
Because I'm just going off of the examples he set. And Austin, Rock, and Cena, none of those guys were in their 40s when they were making their money.
Well, not the Rock.
Right. No, neither was Austin, neither was Cena.
So, realistically speaking, it's something that, I definitely think that depending on how he's treated and depending on, how far they are willing to go with him, that's going to speak volumes. Because realistically, at the end of the day, if he's not given that opportunity, then it's not going to happen regardless. That's the hindrance of the machine that is WWE. Yes, they have an amazing platform, but if you're not pushed, it's going to take something like getting your nose broken by Nia Jax in order to get you to that next level.
But isn't it
as is the case with Becky Lynch?
Isn't it fair to say, though, in some regard, that the last, New Day's been around for 7 years, 6 years, something like that, I guess?
Yeah, about that.
Yeah.
That the popularity was already there. And that's what makes me wonder why the trigger was never pulled. In fact, why did they pull the trigger on Kofi and not Big E?
I think they felt that they weren't ready for Big E. To be completely honest with you, they weren't. He had everything, but I think the one thing is he didn't have seasoning, and I don't think they wanted to waste it on him. If they gave him that push and he fought flat on his face, it could have very well, he wouldn't have been with us today.
Another thing to keep in mind as well, realistically, is he came to the WWE as a power lifter.
Sure.
He did not come to the WWE as a wrestler. So it was one of those things where everything that we're seeing has been built from the ground up since 2009. So as far as his in-ring ability, as far as his, his character development, it's one of those things that it takes somebody with a natural charisma to even be in this discussion. I out of the names mentioned, yes, I think Bianca Belair has, the easiest, I don't want to say the easiest road, but she definitely has the most time ahead of her. And as a result, almost by default, she out of the people on this list is the odds on favorite. But I think if we don't factor necessarily age into it, I think Big E, without question, could very well be a major superstar and could be in the running to be the face of the company.
Sean said that Big E has to stop portraying having sex with the Money in the Bank case in the corner. He won't be taken seriously until the comedy stops.
I agree with that 100%.
I was going to say the comedy thing is why I don't think they ever pulled the trigger on him when he was, a part of New Day, is because they were comedy based.
All right.
And
but you bring up a good point. So that then comes down to giving direction and listening to the direction and taking the character a certain way. Now, we're not just talking about the face of the company, remember. We're talking about people who transcend professional wrestling and become mainstream. By the way, the guy didn't even mention Batista. Like, who would ever fucking thought Batista would have transcended and gone into the mainstream and possibly become more popular in the mainstream than he ever was as a wrestler.
And he's a part of MCU.
Yeah, well.
And was this close to having his own Drax movie as far as a conversation, maybe not as actually a green light. That's huge.
But that takes up a good question, and that is, if you're already typing him as a comedy act, then how does he translate in the being able to turn that over into Hollywood money? So there's a lot of, what I'm saying is there's a lot of questions, just like Sasha, there's a lot of questions with Big E because they're kind of in the same ballpark.
So would you say that a lot of times people end up getting typecasted because of what they are presented in wrestling, to where it would be really hard for people to kind of see them in a different role per se, because Big E does the whole gyration and he's always been booked as a comedy act. If he did start doing movies, it would be really hard for people to see that.
So Big E's biggest contribution will be if they can get the Our Heroes Rock project off the ground, because that is perfect for what that kind of influence that he could have in terms of being a teacher who is someone who is you can look up to, and tell the stories. I think that honestly, almost every single scenario with a wrestler started off as a typecasting when they've made a transition. I mean, we'll start with the first one. Hogan played a fucking wrestler, not only in Rocky, that got him the main eyes to get him into the WWF, ethra, but then Vince decides, oh, we'll do a movie about you as a wrestler. And it's like, from that point on, you look at the shit that he did, and it's like nothing fucking held up for him, because the stuff he got was not great, because he was looked at as Hulk Hogan. Mm-hmm. That's why The Rock and Cena now, and to some extent now Batista kind of coming up with a little bit of steam, they're getting opportunities that people have never gotten before. And again, it diversifies not only in movies, but television and hosting and and spokesperson and that kind of stuff, that you're seeing these people all around. So listen, you could look at guys too, like Mick Foley, right? Mick Foley is a good example of someone who became a very well-known name, but one of the reasons he became such a big name is because he wrote a book, and that's one thing Rock has that none of these other guys have under their belt, essentially, is a #1 book.
Yeah.
So can you find that next person? I don't know, man. I don't know.
Wow. Well, good stuff, guys. Really big conversation. Even Sean mentioned something else, but that'll even keep the conversation going, and we got to get to the next. But good stuff. All right, let's move over to the third count from thesportster.com, and it's titled, "What should the end goal of having wrestling legends in AEW be?" So let's read a little bit of it. It says AEW has a trend of bringing in wrestling legends like Sting to help out younger legends. But what should the end goal of the team of these teams be? AEW has made a concerted effort to integrate wrestling legends of the past into the full-time product. And this is a much different system from WWE, who usually wheel out their legends and Hall of Famers in a special episode of Raw and SmackDown, like the anniversary shows and special episodes like Legends Night. And these special shows have led to a mixed bag in how the legends are used. The more frequent they happen, the less special each legend feels. The latest of these special legends of these shows, Legends Night, was especially egregious and featured Randy Orton destroying and demeaning a number of WWE legends. And AEW, however, have always treated their legends with respect. Sting debuted with a huge fanfare and started an immediate partnership with Darby Allin, one of their hottest young stars. Sting and Darby Allin have since been putting on the huge matches, which have more often than not stolen the show. Arn Anderson has been brought in as Cody's Rhodes coach, accompanied Cody to all of his matches, and Jake the Snake Roberts has done the same with Lance Archer. So article started to talk about the partnership between the legends and the young talent, pretty much saying in those articles that, nothing is really happening with the legends and their talent. They just kind of come and same thing every week, maybe help out, maybe say a few words, but there's really nothing there. So it goes into that. And then it comes on, it breaks down and goes and says that what probably should happen is that each last one of the names that they named, which was Sting and Arn Anderson and Jake the Snake, he was saying that there should probably be some part that the younger wrestlers that they're teamed up with, I guess including Cody, if you want to throw him in the young, that maybe, they should turn on these guys. That could be something that would be good, to turn on Jake or turn on Arn or turn on to Sting. But nevertheless, how he ends the article is saying that these partnerships have end goals that could go on to propel the young guys into heights and they haven't reached before. But the journey to that end goal could use a little more twists and turns along the way to keep things as fresh as they need to be. All right, so Matt Michaels, you get to start this one off. Apparently here, he's saying, look, AEW apparently treats legends a little bit more respect. And yes, we do enjoy seeing the legends when they're teamed up with some of the young guys. And yeah, I mean, it's great to see, but then there's really nothing too much going on between them. They just kind of show up all the time or whatever. Something needs to happen. Someone needs to turn on someone, and that maybe will give that Darby Allin to turn on, turn on Sting, or boost Lynch Archer for, if he turns on Jake the Snake. What's your take on this particular article as you kind of read through and kind of see what he's trying to say?
So at the same breath, WWE brought in Goldberg again. Edge is in. Cena's in. They're messing. But AEW treats them with respect.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when's the last time you're like, oh, great, Jake the Snake Roberts is on TV? Who fucking cares?
Mm-hmm.
Seriously, I still question. In this article, this is how much that this impact has been made on them. They didn't even mention Tully Blanchard.
Mm.
So
he's on there all the time.
Yeah. And on top of that, this guy starts talking as if, I can't wait to see when Darby turns on Sting, because he literally says in this that that's going to be an amazing match. You know what? All it is TK has money. TK decides that, hey, I can hang out with Jake Roberts. Here's a 3-year deal. Great. Make the money. Take it. But in terms of being any part of the reason that anyone watches, I mean, there might be 10 people who watch because Sting is part of the show. But you're watching for Darby Allin. If Sting wasn't with Darby Allin, you're not going, well, I'm not watching Darby Allin anymore.
Right.
So I think his points are just kind of stupid.
Yeah, Simon Street, I was reading the comment here. John said that I saw Flair and Sting wrestle each other and their true prime in January 1991 in San Francisco. 30 years later, damn, I'm old. I don't want to see them take up TV time anymore. Would you agree with that sentiment right there? Okay.
Really quick.
Yeah,
and,
sure.
and the point in this article actually said that the last time that Sting wrestled on TNT, I guess, it was the Flair Sting match. And with all the rumors now that Flair's coming to AEW, hey man, in 3 years, we can see Flair and Sting wrestle the last match of AEW too.
Yeah. Simon, what's your take on this whole thing, man? You got legends here, man. AEW seem to pick up WWE legends and apparently treat them a little bit more respect by having them on the show every week. Is that necessary? What's your take?
To be honest with you, the one thing that I personally feel that AEW has done correctly is with regards to their legends. And I say it to this extent. Have them be like, mentors. Yeah, obviously, right? But also have it to where their influence is and set the trend so that down the road, once Jake the Snake is gone, Blanchard's done, Sting is done, you have the next racket of people, Christian Cage, Mark Henry, Big Show, they take their little, I would like to see something like that because there is a nostalgia factor to seeing those, but I don't want to see them in the capacity of they're constantly in match. And that's what WWE would end up doing more or less. They would have them in a match with somebody, totally get squashed. It's like, okay, at least in this one, they're kind of like, y'all ever seen Ant-Man? You've seen Ant-Man, right? Okay, so Ant-Man, you have Douglas's character. He was the old Ant-Man. He didn't jump in that goddamn suit and did shit, but he was always there. And I kind of like seeing that. I know it's something that came to my mind, but I think that that's the perfect thing. I like how AEW does it. I'm cool with it.
All right. Well, that leaves you, Sin City Steve, definitely being that this is the show that you talk most about here. What's your take on seeing WWE legends? Do you feel that they are being used correctly? What's missing? Is there anything missing? What's your take on the article?
Honestly, I don't have too many issues with the way that AEW is using legends.
Okay.
I think that they are at a saturation point. I don't want to see any more coaches or, mentors or whatever the hell they're choosing to call these guys. I think we're full. So there's no need to unearth any other people. Obviously Flair is going to end up being on there with Andrade. We can basically, that's a foregone conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those things that as long as they don't trot out absolutely, everybody, then it's not too big of an ordeal. Now, keep in mind, the thing that I do have to agree with Michaels on is this article did go into the details about, how things will be better once Darby turns on Sting, or Archer turns on Jake, or Cody turns on Arn. Mm-hmm. Fantasy book it all you want. Whatever. Realistically, that's going to be a vehicle to help those guys get over. In the terms of Cody, whatever. But at the end of the day, am I going to be pissed off that he beats up Arn Anderson? No. I'm not going to get any kind of him beating up Arn is not going to make me hate him. For instance, it's one of those things where if they choose to have one of those guys turn on their mentor, it's strictly going to be a storyline
just to get the person out, just to get the
person out, just to write him off.
Yeah.
And realistically, that's fine. Ultimately they should be used. The reason why I say I don't have a big problem with them using them the way that they have is because more often than not, they are giving whatever talent that they're with a rub of, hey, Sting's with Darby Allin. Why Sting with Darby Allin? And so immediately you ask more questions. So thus it's more thought provoking. Now, I am not happy to see Sting in the ring as much as he has been. We've talked about that on the show. But I don't really have too much of a problem with them using them as they have, but we're at a saturation point, no more.
And that's a very good point, Steve, because this article, like I said, it mentioned Tully. It also, in bringing up Andrade and probably having Flair, you also had Vicky Guerrero and you also had Chavo Guerrero with Andrade. So that goes to my point that Andrade just is not the fucking person that you want to make him. And B, those two more names right there. You also have to think of Matt Hardy's in this same role. You also have to think that, Christian is being used in the ring, but you're about to see at some point that transition happen.
Correct.
You could almost associate probably half the roster that is the, active roster having some X person being paired up with for some reason or another. And saturation point is a great way to describe it, because unfortunately, you know what? They're not the first place to do this. And we saw this when TNA was bringing in these guys. It killed their product. And that's why I say, if you keep going like this, Flair and Sting will wrestle your last show on this program too on TNT. So don't do it. Stay away from it. Why buy into this whole thing of we have to have, all these older people on the show? It's like, your whole thing is, well, we're a demographic of 18 to 49. Great. Then why do you need these guys?
I could see it, and obviously, make excuses for it when they were a year into the business. But now because realistically it was smart when they first started everything up, so that casual fans, as they're flipping through the channels and, oh shit, is that Sting? He's still wrestling. that kind of thing, in which, take it as you will. But yeah, I think that, sooner or later, hopefully sooner, they'll get to that point where, some of these guys will be siphoned off the show.
Shit, we didn't even mention Taz.
Yeah, I know.
I was about ready to mention Taz.
Like,
yeah.
Fuck. It's, and eventually this is where Jericho's headed now too. So if you've already got someone like Jericho, do we really need like X? It's like you already have a guy here who's perfect for this. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Good stuff, guys. That is our 3 count. And we want to thank everybody. Man, the chat was definitely lit tonight. A lot of people had a lot to say. Yes. Thanks for hanging out with us there. All right, let's give our final thoughts, man. Man, I know, right? I was going to read that comment, but I was like, oh, man. You know what? The hell? Why not? Sean says, at least Mae Young was going through tables. And then Chris goes, she was also wearing schoolgirl outfits and shoving her 900-year-old cooch in Bischoff's face too.
Hey man, you got to put in work. It's hard out here.
You know what? You know what was really funny about that too is mentioning the fact that no one knew who the fuck Mae Young was.
It's true.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So people had a little bit of idea of Moolah because she had some association throughout the whole arch of Vince's, having the company go national. But Mae Young, man, people just found her, which is a different scenario than bringing in quote unquote legends, because Mae Young had the best portion of her career when she was in her 80s.
You're right.
Yeah.
You are damn right.
All right, guys. Final thoughts, man. What do you want to tell the people tonight and this week? Let's start with you, Simon Street.
Look, everybody, continue to be safe. Continue to be, at the best possible version of yourself you can. And don't try to demean or take away anything from anybody. And continue to support Vegas Badboyz podcasting. And if you like us, follow us, click that subscribe. And by all means, give some money our way, because we do this for you, but we don't do it for cheap.
Oh, my God. We sound like Corbin now.
Only $100,000.
Only.
And we do have a cash app, so if you ball in, feel free to hit us with that money sign Vegas Badboyz with a Z, and we'll definitely use that. We actually do take those donations given, and we just help promote our show and do things like we had our giveaway and different things like that. So we thank everybody for what you do, and we appreciate that. Sin City, what you want to tell the good people?
Thank you guys for hanging out with us. Tonight was a lot of fun in the chat. So shout out to everybody in there. It was awesome. Also, we're going to be out and about this coming weekend at the various indie shows and obviously at SummerSlam itself. So if you see someone rocking a Vegas Badboyz shirt, don't hesitate. Come up to us, say what's up.
Yes.
We're all, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I mean, we're all pretty damn approachable. So yeah, just come up, say what's up, man. I know that I'm going to be at the GCW show. I'm going to be at the FSW shows, Grap House. I'm going to be all over the place. So swing by, say what's up. Also, very special shout out and thank you to every brave man and woman serving this country on lands both foreign and domestic. You enable us to do what we do. Thank you. And also, last but not least, repsports.com, reppsports.com. Use promo code Vegas at checkout. Save yourself 15%. Go there for all of your pre-workout, weight loss, and general wellness needs. Again, repsports.com, promo code Vegas at checkout. Save yourself 15%.
No doubt. Matt Michaels.
Yeah, this week, another passing in the wrestling world, Dominic Dinucci, who was in his 80s. He did pass away, and he was a wrestler that was popular in the 60s and 70s, but really biggest thing for Dominic Dinucci is that he trained Mick Foley and Shane Douglas. So he was someone who made an impact in pro wrestling, and even though he was older, it's still a shame that another week, another passing.
Yeah. Well, we will keep that name, remember that name, and
who was it?
And we'll just continue
Dinucci.
to
never forget
to
impact.
hold them up. So with that, let's get out of here, man. It's gonna be fun this week, and I hope to see some of you guys out there this week and weekend. Be safe though. All right. We still in this craziness, so definitely be safe. With that, thank you for checking us out. Thanks for listening, and we will see you